evening, everyone. How are you?
Yes.
My name is Clarence Lewis. I'm the chairperson for this event. And today right now we have 4 coaches, and 2 from the track world and 1 from football and 1 from actually basketball, 2 college coaches. One of the track coaches, he did coach in college. He went back to high school and started coaching again in high school, which is great also. And they're also in the process of their championship season. So, and then we have another track coach who has his own track club, and he's also coached in high school also, and he actually resides in Texas. Okay, so the coaches are on the panel tonight will be Mr. Monte Ross, assistant coach at Temple for basketball. Cory for now Davidson football team. Is I correct to say that?
Yes, sir. Davidson football.
All right, and then we have Mr. T. Ranger for what's the name of your track club again, sir?
Ranger Elite.
Ranger Elite, and we have Mr. Jason Lamont Jackson here from. I met him when he was at Virginia State, and now he's where? Where are you at now, sir?
I'm at West Orange High School, West Orange, New Jersey.
All right. So now we're going to open this up with questions. I'm going to just throw out one question out there. The first question is, and I'm going to let Brother Mr. Lamont speak first, and then we can go around the room. When coaches are actually trying to recruit athletes, what do most coaches try to find within those athletes? Like, what's the number one and top tier things that they're looking for? Whether it doesn't matter which sports that you have, but what are you looking for? And also, elaborate a little bit on trying to get the parents that's involved with their children in the sport.
Well, thank you for having me. We're actually coming back from one of our championship meets. So I'm at West Orange High School now. I was at Seton Hall University as an assistant track coach, and then Virginia State University as the head track coach. I was Seton Hall for 5 years, Virginia State for 8. And the first thing that I ask when I'm talking to a coach about a student athlete is, are they a good kid and are they coachable? That's the 2 things that I want to know. Our job as coaches is to help them to get better in whatever sport it is. And I think we're all confident in that area. So it's less about athletics to a point and more about, are they coachable? Are they going to listen? Are they going to class? Are they going to be a kid that is missing study hall, missing weight room, and that type of stuff? Is it someone that I want to invest in? Because that's what we're doing. We're investing in them for those 4 years or 4.5 years, whatever it takes them to graduate. So for me, it's more about, their character, the little things that they're doing outside of the track when we're talking about track and field. And are they coachable? And then if all of those things line up, then we start talking about tracks and time and different things like that. Obviously, if I'm talking to them or their coach from the beginning, there's some interest there, whether they're a sprinter, jumper, hurdler, or thrower, and we evaluate them based on those things. But the first thing we want to ask, because we see the performances online, whether it's a video or a link, but we don't know, what they're like off of the track. And so those are the first things that I like to ask to kind of get to know and figure out, is this someone that I'm going to invest in? Because whether they're, a recruited scholarship athlete or they're a walk-on athlete, once they're on the team, we're still investing in them, with our time, our effort, their gear, their meal money per diem, whatever it is. And so it's an investment. And we want to make sure that we're, they're doing right by us and we're doing right by them.
Thank you. Brother Monte, tell us from your perspective as a basketball coach.
Well, I would echo what Coach Jackson just said from a standpoint of, you have so many talented young men that we look at. One of the differentiators for us is their attitude. Like he said, their coachability. I know track is different in terms of, you look at someone's times and that sort of thing. We do most of our stuff on a face-to-face basis or in-person recruiting. And so while we're at a game, we may look at, well, we may sit a certain place at a game. Maybe we sit behind their bench. We want to see when they walk off the court, when the coach takes them out, do they interact with their teammates? How do they interact with their teammates? If the coach takes them out for a mistake, are they sulking when they go down the bench? If one of their teammates makes a mistake, how do they address their teammates? Those types of things. So again, it's not just all about a young man's talent. There are a host of other things because, like Coach Jackson aptly said, it's an investment, and it's a huge, huge investment that we're making in these young people. So we're not going to tolerate a whole lot of nonsense because there's so many people, so many players that play the game. You can find somebody that has a good attitude. You can find somebody that wants to work hard. And I'll, before I get off, I'll say this to you. The two things that you can never tell about a student athlete is one, their work ethic, and two, their character. And I say that to say, because when you go and ask somebody at that school about that young man, they all want him to get a scholarship. So they say, oh, he's the hardest worker. He's a gym rat. I've never seen anybody work as hard. So I asked, well, what type of person? Oh, he's a great kid. So it's a gamble for us. So you never really know until they get on campus what type of person they really are. When they get away, and then you start to see. So we have to make these determinations a lot of times off of a snapshot that we see in a 5-minute thing. So it's important for the parents and the young men to understand, and young ladies that are on here as well. It's important for you to understand, it's an overused term, but you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So when we as college coaches are at that game, you can't afford to have a bad attitude day. You can have a bad game day where you're missing shots and may turn over, but you cannot afford to have a bad attitude day anytime.
Okay. Thank you, brother, Mr. Monte. How about you there, Mr. Calder?
All right, so I'm going to piggyback off of both you guys. So the first thing I really look for, first and foremost, character. If I can't see you in person, I'm looking at your social media. Social media is crucial these days, especially your Twitter account. So certain things that you should have in your Twitter account, first and foremost, your full name, first and last name, what high school you go to, your GPA, test score, and then your highlight tape link in your bio. After character, if I can go to a game, I want to see your body language on the sideline. So we get a 3 and out, you drop a pass, whatever, you fumble the ball. What's your body language like coming back over to the sideline, like Coach Ross was talking about earlier? And also, as I get to establish a relationship with you, are you dependable? How's your follow through? So if I ask for your unofficial transcript, how long is it going to take me to get it? So follow through is huge. And then one thing I look for, are you a multi-sport athlete? So, all right, you play football, right? Okay, what else do you do? Do you run track? Do you play basketball? That just shows that you can do and perform other athletic movements. And then lastly, then I look at overall football talent. So your highlight tape. So making sure your highlights are crisp. So you want your first minute and a half of highlights to be your top plays. Don't wait until the end. Your first 10 plays need to be your best plays from the season. Those are the things I'm looking for.
All right, Mr. Ranger, you're coming from a totally different aspect from all the coaches on the screen right now, because you have your own track club, plus you coach in high school. When you are handed kids in high school, or when you have parents who walk up to you and want you to train their child, are some of these conversations about colleges and things being talked to in the beginning or somewhere during the course of you training?
A good day. I'm Terrance here. Well, previous to what these coaches, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So previous to what these great coaches said, a lot of parents just, when they approach you, they just tell you about their kid and what they want for their kid. But a lot of them don't understand what these coaches really require for these athletes. So I can talk about stuff that I've experienced, you know what I mean, calling a coach, one of these coaches about an athlete. And then the first thing they ask about the academics, you know, what GPA is like and all that. And what type of individual this athlete is, you know. So as these coaches said earlier, like Cory, is the correct, you know, they want to have an idea because I've been training these and have a little relationship with them. So these are some questions they ask when I'm talking to them about kids and all that good stuff. So parents 9 times 10, they just, oh, kid is good, I want to go to this or that, but they don't understand the reality of what it really takes and required to be a student lead in college. You know?
Okay.
So it's a continued conversation to try to convince these parents they understand what it really takes for they said to be in these institutions and the responsibility of their student athlete.
All right, I have a question. When you're dealing with these parents, Coach, when you were in college, what should a parent look at when they talk to their child about when they start saying, I want to go to this college, I want to go to that college, I want to go here, I want to do this, I want to do that. I mean, is a lot of paperwork that you got to figure out, and every athlete is not a quote unquote full ride scholarship, because this is the narrative that a lot of parents are coming up with now, is about a full ride. Everybody wants a full ride. I want a full ride. Can I get a full ride? And not knowing what that full ride means. You know, they think that because he's the greatest athlete, football, basketball, track, whatever, they're not going to have to pay for him to go to school. and I try, me myself as a coach, try to explain to them that there's only a few sports that actually quote unquote give what they call that full ride. And it's only a very small number that's going to get that quote unquote full ride the way that you, for just that sport. Not saying there's other things that's not combined to get the full ride, but you know, can y'all elaborate on that? Brother Lamont there.
Yeah, that's great. So I coached, I ran at Division I, Seton Hall, and then coached there. And so the maximum amount of scholarships, let's say on the boys' side, it was like 12.2, 12.1, and on the girls' side, you can get up to 18. And that was a private institution. And so, the head coach has to figure out how they're going to put their team together. Am I going to just go get 12 guys or 14 guys and then go to compete against another team that may have 60, right? So a full scholarship doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to use that one scholarship on one person. I'm going to kind of split it up. And so when I got to Virginia State, which was Division II, I only had maybe 4 boys scholarships or 4 men's and 6 women's. But academically, if a kid had, let's say at Virginia State, if you had a 3.0 and 1,000 math and verbal, you already got about $10,000. So now I can take some athletic money, put it with your academic money. As long as you keep that 3.0, then you're going to be close to a full. But I'm trying to build a team. And so I need more individuals like yourselves, or the individuals that are on this call that have good grades, that are going to come out, work hard, keep that GPA, and they're going to get a partial, right? And together with their maybe financial aid and their academic money, it'll be closer to a full. If you look at, and for track and field, I know other sports are a little bit different, but you look at their conference championship, if you can, out of high school, make the final in that conference of the school that you're going to, then you could potentially be considered. And even then, it may be only about 80%. But if you can't make that conference final as a freshman, you're looking at 50% or lower, unless you have outstanding grades where they can package it together as a full. And that's for track and field and kind of cross country. The other coaches can speak to the larger team sports, but for track and field, there's a website, and coach can give it to you. TFRS, TFRRS. You can find any school that you're looking at in the country, look up their conference championship results, look at the final in your event. And if you would have made that final and scored some points, then you could potentially, because you'd be in high school still. But if you couldn't make that final, you may not be able to get, get a full ride.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Brother Cory. What did you say? Go to football, and then we go to basketball.
All right, so football wise, so just so you guys understand how scholarships work in football, at the FBS level, so that's your Notre Dame, that's your Penn State, your Power 5, Group of 5, they get 82 scholarships for their teams. FCS, so that will be your North Dakota States, that would be your Villanovas, schools like that, they're allowed 63 scholarships. Unlike FBS, those 63 FCS scholarships are not all full. So like Coach was saying about the partial scholarships, the same thing applies to football at the FCS level all the way down to Division II. So how they can package you is, okay, if this kid has over a 3.0, I can give him academic money and maybe give him 25% football. Because understand, a football roster, I mentioned 63 FCS scholarships. An FCS football team has 120 kids in total. So they've got to split those scholarships in a way to where they can field the best roster possible. I actually coach in the Pioneer Football League, so it's very similar to Ivy Leagues where we're non-athletic scholarship, we're merit-based scholarship. So based off GPA, test score, and financial aid, FAFSA, that's how we divvy out our financial aid. So for us, the kid with the higher GPA is going to get the most academic scholarship money. Typically, we're about, I'd say, $55,000 a year. The highest academic scholarship we can give is $30,000. That's a presidential scholarship. That's getting a 4.0 kid into school. Then after that, we can divvy out the FAFSA. So Ivy League, non-scholarship, PFL, that's how we roll. And in D2, you only get 36 scholarships. So it gets even thinner. So that's where you get the good grades, but nobody's really ever on a full ride D2 scholarship just because there's not enough to go around.
Okay. Brother Monte Ross.
We are in basketball in Division I, we're a little different in that we get 13 scholarships and we're not allowed to divvy the scholarships up. And what I mean is, you know, they are full rides at the Division I level. And the reason it's like that, if you, for whatever reason, you wanted to give a kid $1,000, well, that counts as your full 13 scholarship. You know, it's no, so that's why it's just a full ride in Division I. And it's very important. It's very competitive. And it's like, again, going back to the original statement, you know, we have to be very, very careful who we pick and choose to give these scholarships to. So you can't afford to, you don't want to get in your own way. There are a whole lot of obstacles that are going to prevent, you know, a number of our students from becoming college athletes. And when I say get in your own way, you know, take care of yourself academically. There are things that, you know, and there's a question in the chat that I promise that I'll get to in terms of the clearinghouse. You know,
Right.
you have to register for the clearinghouse, and you have to have a certain amount of your courses taken care of before you get to 12th grade, because what was happening was a lot of students were, for lack of a better term, sleeping through 9th and 10th and almost 11th grade. And then they were going to these pop-up, you know, prep schools or pop-up emergency academies and just taking a whole bunch of classes to fulfill the 16 core courses that you must have. So now what they have through the initial eligibility center and the clearinghouse is you have to have a certain amount of these courses taken care of by the time you finish your junior year. You have to have a certain amount by the time you finish your sophomore year. So it's very important to monitor all of these. And the biggest, if people don't hear anything else I say, the biggest thing that you can do for your student athletes is write this down. Go to ncaa.org, ncaa.org, and then click on the tab that says student athletes. Under the ncaa.org, click on the tab that says student athletes. Under student athletes, click on the tab that says Guide for College-Bound Student Athletes. It is a 40-page comprehensive guide that walks you, takes you step by step through everything a student athlete is going to need to be eligible at the Division I level, Division II level, Division III level. It talks about everything. And we highly encourage everybody. Now we try to, the kids that we actually recruiting, we walk them through it step by step. I'm ashamed and not ashamed to say, yes, we do grab their hand and we walk them through step by step, because that's how important it is to us, and things fall through the cracks. But for anybody else that's listening that does not have someone that can walk them through it step by step, ncaa.org, click on student athletes. Under student athletes, click on Guide for College-Bound Student Athletes, and it's a comprehensive guide that will take you through it step by step.
Okay, what I would say is this, and in my working with a lot of my athletes that I work with, I tend to speak that narrative in the 9th grade.
Yes, yes.
I start letting the parents know, especially if they're thinking about it, if they're not thinking about it, you know, because college is coming, and most of the parents all feel as though that their child is going to go to college. So yeah. I try to tell them throughout. By the time they get to junior year, I'm really stressing if they asking them the question, did you fill out your clearinghouse? Did you go in there? Did you check into this? Did you do that? You know, I also go about telling my athletes that 11th grade year, you should have at least 10 schools that you think that you might want to go to. You don't know if you're getting recruited or not, but you got to have your dream schools, you got to have your local schools, and you got to have schools that's just not even on the radar. That's just the way I tell them to mix it up for themselves, because if they don't have an idea, they don't know. I've come across an athlete who just this year was kind of in a rush. And I tried to tell the parents, I said, you know, if you wait a little bit longer, more people's gonna inquire. You know, as a pandemic year, there's a lot of things going on. However, they didn't wait, but they had the best offer at that moment. And I thought it was the best offer. And I told them that it's a good fit for her. Mm-hmm. They were waiting for a track scholarship, and a lot of schools she wanted to attend, they will have it on hold. But good old St. Joe's said, hey, we'll give you this and the academic money, like you said, okay, for the scholarship, the academic scholarship money kicked in, and then all her in-state money kicked in, and she's at the point that all she's paying is $2,000 a year, each year that she's there. That's a good package, I believe.
That's winning right there. That's winning.
You know, so, but like I tell the other athletes, I said, that's not going to happen for every athlete, because every athlete is different, and if everyone has to be asked and spoken for at a different rate and different time frame. It goes by your academics mostly, and that's the main thing that I want the parents to understand is it's about the academics. It's about the academics first, and then your athleticism will come. It may not be that school that you or your child felt as though that they wanted to go to, but we as coaches, I try to direct my athletes to go what fits.
And that's so important, Coach. And to piggyback off of that, parents have to be selfish. And this is the only time I tell high school kids that we're recruiting and parents that we're recruiting, be selfish, because this is a process that, you know, it's a business. It is a business. For college athletics is a big business. So you have to choose that school, not that necessarily wants you. Choose the school that needs you. Choose that school where you know when you have a bad game, you have a bad week, you have a bad month, they're not looking to replace you right away. You're not looking over your shoulder. Choose a school that when you have a bad game, and I'll give you an example, you know, my daughter was being recruited at the Division I level, and when we sat down and I talked to her, I said, look, you need to go to a school that when you have a bad game, after the game, the coach is going to be up in the office and they're going to say, you know what, we got to get with Lauren Ross tomorrow. Let's work on, you know, her confidence. Let's work on, versus you go to a place where you have a bad game and the coaches are up in the office saying, look, what JUCO tournament is going on next week? We got to go replace Lauren Ross. So you got to go to a place that you are needed, not necessarily that you're wanted. The other thing I always tell parents is, and I get in trouble sometimes for this, is we as parents, I can't tell you how many times parents have sat in my office and they say, well, it's his decision. I'm going to let him make that decision. I don't have anything to do with it. It's not, and I say, ho. Up until this point in his life, you have told him what sneakers he could buy, what jeans he could buy, what shirts he could buy, where he could go, where he couldn't go. And now he's getting ready to make the most important decision of his life. And you're telling him, no, it's his decision. No. Let's get away from that. Let's talk about Wes, help and guide him, just like you've done with every decision he's made for the last 18 years. Let's stay, because watch, these kids will make decisions based off of, you know what? I like the color sneakers they wear. I'm going to that school. They don't know nothing about the coach. They don't know about the assistant coach. They don't know about the academics, but they make decisions, and that's what they've done. So they still need, so I would always say to parents, please stay as deeply involved with this college decision. I'm not saying you got to make the college decision for them, but you know what? We as parents, a lot of times, we know what our kids need more so than they know when they're 18 years old, because they're still developing, they're still growing. They don't necessarily know what they want, know what they need. They may have gone on their recruiting visit and fell in love with the pretty cheerleader that the coaches put in front of them, and now they want to go to that school, not knowing that cheerleader ain't going to be there when they get there, and that's no reason to choose a school. So there are so many things that I see, and I'll go off on a tangent. This transfer portal, like there were 1,500 kids in the transfer portal. Like that is unconscionable to me. Like people just, and we just leave. You know, we don't, as soon as it gets hard, as soon as the coach says something to you in terms of you need to work harder or you got to stay a little later, then it's like, okay, well, coach don't like me, I'm leaving. So we just go into this trend, but that's another topic for another day. But again, the transfer portal, for those who don't know, is if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior at a school, and you decide that you don't like that school anymore, you don't want to go, and you want to transfer to another school. It used to be where you just transferred and it was word of mouth, but now you just put your name into this transfer portal and every school can look and see who's transferring. And it's a tool that's geared specifically for the student athletes because it gives them many opportunities. But it's discussed in a way, you know, it's going about because now you have coaches saying, well, I'm not going to recruit high school kids. I'm going to just recruit out of the portal because those kids have experience. So I'll just build my team around that, which I think is not right. But again, parents, if your student athlete, your son finds an opportunity that they like, that fits them, tell them don't just wait on the sideline for that all perfect train to come along and you're going to hop on that. If you see a fit, you have to take that fit. Now make sure it's a fit athletically, academically, and socially. If there is a fit, take that fit, because a lot of high school kids, because of these new rule changes, are being left by the wayside. And these are good players that are just not being recruited because the new rule, because of COVID, was last year did not count for anybody eligibility wise. So if you were a freshman last year, this upcoming year, you're a freshman again. If you want to transfer someplace, you don't have to sit out. You can transfer, and that year didn't count again. So if you transfer, you're a freshman at, you know, Davidson, and you want to transfer to UNC Chapel Hill, well, you can transfer to UNC Chapel Hill, don't have to sit out, and you're a freshman again. So you got 4 years of eligibility again. So because of that, a lot of high school kids are being left by the side because some of them have great offers and there is a fit, but you say, you know what? I wonder if Duke is going to come in a month and offer me. So they want to wait. And then, you're going to come back and those opportunities are going to dry up on you.
I have a question for all of you coaches. What would you say to, because I've had parents and athletes ask me this, what happens when you hear about kids want to reclassify themselves and they haven't even graduated out of high school? And I don't know if that's illegal. And I tell the parents, I said, look, I can't tell you what you can or cannot do with your child, but if you can take your child and take him to a prep school or transfer him to a private school that you couldn't afford last time and extend it, I said, I don't know how that works because I don't really necessarily condone it. But if that's what you want to do, I don't. So what do you think about, I'm curious to hear from all of you about that one. What do you think? And Mr. Ranger, you didn't answer this question earlier, so let's start with you.
Reclassified. To me, reclassified to me is like a joke, because you really reversing back to what you learned previously. If you're a sophomore, if you were a junior or a sophomore in high school, and then realize that, oh, I'm right here, or I'm younger or whatever. So in that case, to me, you graduating at 16, 17, I recommend you, or your parents to recommend you go to college, because academically, if you're not there all the way, you can still go to the junior college and develop. But reclassified, I'm not sure about that as far as you going back, because a lot of students, either they take the opportunity and run it, or some still play around it. To me, to reclassify, that means you're playing around high school all the past 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
That's my opinion on it right now.
Okay, Coach Lamont, what do you have to say about that? Okay, Coach Lamont must be off for a minute.
I think he's not here.
Okay. Coach Cory, what you got for me?
All right. So for me, I actually was a post-grad guy before it got super popular. Now everybody's doing it. For me, it was an opportunity to get a little more exposure, being an undersized tailback. I wasn't per se the fastest guy. So to enhance my skill set, I needed that extra year. Also, I was a little bit younger, so I didn't turn 18 until the end of August. So I graduated high school at 17. So it helped me develop my skills. I didn't have to take any classes or anything like that. All I was forced to do was take the SAT one time because I was already eligible going in. So I did have an opportunity to expand on schools by taking the SAT again. But for a kid to just say they're reclassifying before they even hit the peak of their recruiting process, I think it's ridiculous. So definitely take your college opportunities. And like Coach Ross was saying earlier, if you see a fit early, especially in these coming years where roster numbers are going to be thin, you got to jump on it, got to take them. But just don't jump on the whole prep school bandwagon, because it's not, you still got to work for it and you're gambling on yourself. You could blow your knee out your very first practice at your prep school. You're relying on your high school tape still, unfortunately. So just keep that stuff in mind. If you can get in a 4-year school, get in a 4-year school.
Okay, what about you, Coach Ross?
I think I agree with Coach Calder in that, if you can get into now, this is from a parental perspective. If you can get into a 4-year school and get a scholarship, take it, because those things are precious. How many kids are going to make the NBA, make NFL and all that kind of stuff. So the main goal here has to be, and we used to call it in my house, team no tuition. That has to be the main goal. You know what I mean? So if you can attain that and achieve that goal right away and go to college, go. Because if you have an opportunity to get that scholarship, you can always go to that school and do what they call redshirt, which means you are practicing with the team, but you're not playing, so you're not using up that year of eligibility. So you essentially, at all schools, you have 5 years to play for. So you can use that first year as I'm get stronger with my body. I'm gonna get stronger academically with my mind without the pressures of playing on the court or playing on the field. And you can take advantage of that. But when you take advantage, of that, what you still have is you're getting that free education. Like Coach just said, you can go to that prep school route, but it's a gamble. It is a gamble. It's a gamble in terms of getting hurt. It's a gamble in terms of, school that you had eyed all the time may not be there any longer because you decided to go to prep school to enhance myself. Those things it's a gamble. It's a gamble. So from a parental perspective, I would say if you can get that free education, that free scholarship, you got to take it and snatch it, and because that's what this whole thing is supposed to be about anyway, getting a free education.
Okay, brother, can you elaborate?
Yeah, I think for track and field it's probably a little different. You don't hear too much about athletes reclassifying. Now, if they're a dual sport athlete, meaning obviously doing football or basketball and track and field, then you may hear about it then. But just from a track and field perspective, we don't get too many that do it. You have more of depending on if their academics are not up to par, that they may end up going to a junior college first and then, going to a 4-year, but not too many that get into their junior or senior year and then want to reclassify and go to a prep school. Track and field is a little bit different in that regard. So, there's not too much more I can offer in that regards.
Okay. The next question, the question was on the screen for a little while. I tried to jot it down as fast as possible. My president of our chapter asked the question, what are some red flags when you, the coach, or as the parent should be looking at when a coach is recruiting their child? Because sometimes coaches could say a whole lot of things and then it doesn't pan out the way that they said it. And the parents are really upset, and so is the athlete. So what are some red flags or that you may, not to say that anybody uses those that's on this panel, but it's some people that, like I said, even when I went through the recruiting process, it was the same thing. My parents and my uncles always told me, if it ain't in writing, it ain't happening. so it's just like I heard it's like other things where people say, well, this is what we're going to do for you, and this is what we're going to say. This is our good faith. Where it used to be a handshake and okay, I believe in you, good to go. Now it's like, well, So they, I guess they want to know what are some red flags that they should look for when coaches are calling their children or their, people at home, or they're coming to visit if they happen to get home visits or things like that. What are things that they should look for when speaking to coaches?
Well, from my standpoint, I would always tell parents and players themselves, trust your gut. We're all born with that innate sense of, what, I think I can trust that guy, or what, that guy was a little too slick with all his answers and all that kind of stuff. Trust your gut. That would be the first thing to me. The second thing for me would be talk to the current players. However you can get a hold of the current players, and not around your parents, not around the coaches. Have a private conversation, whether it be on your visit, when you can get alone, when y'all go out to a party, whatever, the case may be. But players will tell. And don't necessarily talk to your host, because we as coaches, what we do is we know who to have host these student athletes. We know who the best people are. Talk to the guys that are on the bench that don't play. Talk to the guys that are not your hosts, who, have a comment, because they're going to keep it real with you. If they're unhappy, now, I'm not just going to say somebody that's not playing and thinks he should be playing 20 minutes. Yo, man, these coaches screwing me. I should be playing 20 minutes. Okay, well, I'm not going there. I'm not saying make decisions like that, but you can weed through when you talk to somebody if that coach is a good guy, if that coach is a good person, if that coach treats it. And we have a saying that we treat all of our students fairly. We don't treat them all equal because they're not equal, but we treat them all fairly. What makes you tick may not be what makes her tick or him tick. What makes him tick may not be what makes you tick. So we have to find how to best motivate each and every student athlete that we have. But the two biggest things to me is trust your gut and have a conversation with the other student athletes there, because they'll be real with you and they'll tell you exactly what those coaches are all about.
Coach Jason, what you got?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Coach, with what he's saying in terms of your visit, talking to the student athletes, and being able to get some time alone with them. I think one of the things as parents is we really have to be informed when your kids are about to take that next level, that next step, right? So it may be a little bit different again with football and basketball, but for track and field, there's no such thing as a full 4-year scholarship, right? At the end of every year, we decide if we're going to renew or not, right? So they'll get that letter to say that the scholarship is being renewed. They have to re-sign it for the next year, and same thing for their junior year, same thing for their senior year. And so if they, when I was a head coach, I would say if you uphold your part of the bargain, right? So I never based scholarships on reducing a scholarship or taking a scholarship on athletic performance, because I felt that's what my staff and I should do. But I wanted the parents to understand if they're doing all the little things they're supposed to do, they're not getting in trouble in the dorms, they're going to class, they're doing this and that, their scholarship will be renewed. Now, academically, if they're not doing what they're supposed to, they can lose it. So sometimes a parent or guardian may hear, I'm getting a full scholarship. It's really for that first year. It's not for that. It's not guaranteed that second year if, in fact, they don't do what they're supposed to do academically or socially in the dorms and curfews and that type of stuff. So, and sometimes a parent may say, well, they guaranteed us, if it was, I don't know, $30,000 a year, we thought we were getting $120,000 over 4 years. It's really just $30,000 each year if you uphold your end of the bargain. And then I think, as Coach said, it's really getting a feel for the coaches. Hopefully you get to speak to what I would say is your event coach. So as the head coach, I may not coach the throws. And so I want to make sure that kid that is being recruited gets to talk to the throws coach and is around the throws coach and kind of sees if they vibe. I may have seen them at a meet and say, hey, I want to recruit this kid. They could help us. But if I'm the only one recruiting that person and they never get to speak to the coach they're going to be working with, that could be a red flag. Like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so those are just a few things probably that I would, make sure that we're informed from a parent side, and then just really asking a lot of questions and making sure that you're comfortable with the answers that the coach is giving you.
Okay, how about you there, Cory? What you got?
All right, so the biggest red flag in football is playing time. If a coach is promising an incoming freshman playing time at your at-home visit, that's a red flag, because as a coach, you're going to be 17, 18 years old going up against 22, 23-year-old grown men. I can't guarantee that you're going to be physically ready, first and foremost, or mentally ready to take on a role, because high school, all right, you hand the ball off to a guy and you tell him to run. College, there's a lot more to the schematics. There's a lot more details. All right. Then on top of that, can he handle going to school right away and having a role playing football? So all those things come in factor. So don't fall for that. I've only used that one time, and it was on a transfer. Transfers are a little bit different because they've got the experience. They're more developed. So you can use that promise on them at times. If a coach mentions scholarships opportunity in the future to get you to walk on immediately, unless it's in writing, like you were saying, don't trust it, because we talked about the transfer portal. at the end of the day, if there's a stud transfer that's in the portal, and then there's you, the walk-on, they already have you. They're going to look to get that stud transfer. Then if they're not talking about what the school can do for you long-term, so for me as a coach at Valparaiso, I always said it's not a 4-year degree, it's a 4-year degree. All right, and I was able to prove that with facts. So the average starting salary for an engineer, we're a big engineering school, $60,000. That's the average starting salary. I was able to prove that. All right, so just showing, okay, a degree from this particular school can take you this far. Then, like Coach Ross was talking about, get to know the other players to just understand what the true culture is, because the coach may be trying to sell you something different. And then can you relate to your position coach or your event coach? Can you relate to them? Are you always going to agree with them? No. But can you relate to them? Can they get to you in the best way possible to make you the best player and person you can be? Those are the big things for football.
Okay. Brother, Mr. Ranger there. When you have, let's say, you have a parent who brings you an athlete that might be in the 10th, 11th grade, and they feel as though that they may be average at best. Which direction, and they may have decent grades. I'm not gonna say that they're outstanding grades, but they have decent grades. Are you going to redirect them if they say, hey, I want my child to go to UTEP or University of Texas or Arkansas because he runs a 10-5, or he does this and he's doing that, and he really don't run all of those times. He's running 11 flat and he's running whatever. But they're saying he got to go here. Are you going to try to redirect them, or are you going to just try to train them up to get to a certain point? But if that's hypothetically, they don't make that point, what happens?
Well, for me, a coach as trainer, with a parent come to me with a conversation like that, I keep it real with them. I don't, I tell them, well, if your child running up flat, UTEP, Arkansas, our school is definitely not the school gonna really give him a look. So I can train it to get a certain level, but in all actuality, and be real with you, I think the best you want, you can go to a university. I would say try the junior college route first, because there's few junior colleges will give you a little bit of money, running flat. It's a lot going to try to accept you, but as coaches said earlier, Coach Ross, Coach Cory, and Coach Lamont, you have to say, if you're able to fit with your left flat as a Joe, I would tell the parent that would be a fit for your child to start. Because when you go to junior college, you get an opportunity to get recruited over again if you take care of academics and work on your skills and sharpen it and able to drop times, maybe coming out of college run, maybe a 10, a 5, or a 10-6, something like that. And some university will look at your academics good and they realize that you can progression in your athletic ability when you're in college. So a lot of times, tell parents that, keep it real. Your kid's not a one caliber athlete with 11 flat. That is impossible. And coaches definitely will tell you like it is. So I'm telling you, as your athlete developer, coach, trainer, that's not ready for you. You're gonna need time more to develop, to really have time to say, well, D1. So I'll see them more the junior colleges, or sometimes the NIA. It depends on circumstance. Are best if a coach willing to take these guys with 11 or 20.25 200.
Okay. All right. I got the next question that I have is, what questions should parents ask you guys as college and coaches? What kind of questions should they really be asking you, other than how much money you gonna give me? How much money you gonna give my son? What kind of questions should they really be asking you? Coach Lamont?
I think, you know, if asking them what a normal day is like, again, you know, if they're not asking a coach, they're asking another athlete, depending on if they're on their visit. But, you know, can you just give me a rundown of what a normal day is like at this part of the season, meaning preseason, you know, in the middle of heat of the season, and then once the season's over, kind of what's a normal day? See what, you know, so they have an idea as to their commitment, you know, to the team, if there's community service involved in the off season, you know, study hall, that type of stuff. So just to get an idea as to that. And then also, depending on their event coach or their position coach, different things, you know, you want to ask about, you know, just the type of work that's required, you know, because again, you may not, you may come from a program where you weren't really in the weight room. You didn't have access to it. So everything that you're doing is, you know, crunches and push-ups on your own and maybe some conditioning, but you just that talented, you know, and obviously there's some questions that coaches should be asking, but if they're not, you want to know, you know, some of the things that are going to be required of you on a daily basis there as a student athlete at that institution. So I think that's a good place to start in terms of, you know, being able to ask some questions.
Okay. Cory, what you got?
All right. So first thing, what are your program's core values? If a coach can't tell you what the core values are, or if a program doesn't have core values, that's a huge red flag. So be sure to ask those questions. For us, in my school currently, we have days of the week. So we have basically a word that describes each day of the week, and we go and live by it. And it also correlates with the vision of the university. Next, all right, academically, study hall. How many hours of study hall do you make an incoming freshman take? Your overall team GPA. How is it meeting with academic advisors? Do you have any football specific or your sport specific? And then lastly, internship opportunities and postgraduate opportunities. Because regardless of how far you go in the game, that game's going to end at some point. So whether you play until you're 40 years old or you're done as soon as you graduate, okay, what can this school do for me after football, after track, after basketball?
Okay.
I would echo those that Coach Jackson and Coach Calder just said. I would add into it, you know, what's your graduation rate? You know, what's your what type of academic resources do you have for me if I'm struggling? Are tutors provided? What is the, and I think one of the coaches has mentioned about study hall. Am I required to go to study hall? Is there a GPA requirement for study hall? Things such as, you know, if I'm a great shooter, I'm a basketball player, I'm a great shooter, or shoot, I'm a football player, I'm a wide receiver. Do you guys run the wing T where all you do is run the ball? Do you run play the option where you never pass the ball? If I'm a receiver, that may not be the school I want to go to. If I'm a great post player for basketball, what type of offense do you guys run? Do your guards dominate it? Well, if that's the case, where your guards shoot all the ball, well, if I'm a center, I'm a post guy, well, I never get the ball, so that might not be the place for me. So, and then, you know, ask these questions, because for this to be the way the program is, where our guards for the last 7 years, if you do your research, have scored all of our points, have shot all the balls and all that kind of stuff. And then you go there as a big guy, a 5-man, a center, a postman, and you go there and you don't get the ball, whose fault is that? They've been doing the same thing for the last 7 years. You think they were just going to change for you? Not unless you're Shaq or Olajuwon or Ralph Sampson, they're not changing for you. So these are the type of questions you have to ask. What type of offense do you run? Where do you see me fitting in your offense? You know, and ask them. Coach Calder brought up a very good point when he said them promising you playing time. Ask them about playing time. Yo, coach, how much time do you see me playing in my first year? If their answer is not, you determine that. I don't know, by your work ethic and by how hard if you're a freshman and you can beat out a senior, you're gonna play. And I tell the kids all the time, I don't have time to get into the politics of, well, you know what? You're a freshman, he's a senior, we're going to give him the nod. If you're better than him, my job is to win games. So you're going to play. You're going to play. Maurice Clarett didn't have to sit behind anybody as a freshman at Ohio State. I'm sure Tony Dorsett didn't have to sit behind anybody at the University of Pittsburgh as a freshman. So there are some freshmen, as long as that response to playing time is going to be the best players are going to play, well then, okay, I can roll with that. Because if I'm better than that guy ahead of me and you don't play me, okay, well then you lied to me. Now we got to have a conversation about that. But if I tell you it's about the playing time is about work ethic and whatever, and this guy's working harder than you, and you want to hang out, you want to play PlayStation while he's in the gym working, okay, well we got no rap because he's outplaying you, he's better than you. So just those little nuggets there. Another thing, the last thing I would say, which has become very, very important in the last maybe year, 2 years, what type of mental health resources do you have for your student athletes? Do you have somebody that's on staff? Do you have somebody at the university? If I'm going through something and I want to talk to somebody, like we as coaches, this thing is much too deep for us right now. Like we used to be the psychologists, the psychiatrists, we used to be everything to these young men. Now it's getting too deep. You have to have some type of professional around that can help these young people in this day and age. So that'll be a big question I would ask. What type of mental health resources do you have for your student athletes at this point in time?
Outstanding. Okay, I have a question from the floor. How do you navigate in this process if your high school doesn't have staff that is familiar with the recruitment process in track, basketball, or anything like that? So I guess this is like a high school question. So, Jason, can you give me an answer to that one? And then
Yeah. So if they don't, and I think Coach Ross, when I came back on, I heard him talking about NCAA.org, right? So everybody has to have, I know in track and field, that 10-digit ID number before a coach could bring you for a visit or really want to talk to you. They can look at your transcripts and stuff. That first initial contact, they're going to say, I need your NCAA ID number. So all high school guidance counselors should at least have that basic information on how to help get you registered. If you're on free or reduced lunch, sometimes you can get a waiver, that type of stuff. So the first thing that you want to be able to do is get registered with the NCAA. The good thing about track and field, and I know each, county is different, state is different, is you have mile split that has your times. If at least you're running on some invitationals, then at least you have those times that are showing. If you're only running the dual meets where everything is hand time, then it gets a little sketchy. And so I think once you have established your marks, whether it's in the jumps, the throws, the sprints, and you have that, don't be afraid to, you may have to sell yourself where you're recording, you're recording yourself in an event. Obviously, the shorter events, the better. A coach may not watch a whole 2-mile race, but, and attaching the link, the official link from the results to it and sending it to the coach and the assistant coach. Sometimes the head coach may, designate a recruiting coordinator or something like that. And so you may have to sell yourself. Now, I will tell you that coaches, and I'm sure they can attest to it, their inboxes are full with not only current athletes and just different things from administration that's going on. Recruits are sending stuff, so they may not get to it. And so sometimes I like to, encourage them to follow up with a call, leave a voicemail. You want to call, relatively early when they first get in the office, or leave a message for them so that maybe it's the first message that they get when they come in, or same thing with that email. Maybe not send it in the middle of the day. So if you send it that night, maybe it'll be waiting there for them, but other people may have also sent it. But maybe if you send it at 7 a.m. and then leave a voicemail, something like that, you may have to sell yourself if there's not a person or individual in the school that's going to be able to help you, whether it's a coach that could just be a teacher that's been put in that position and, they may not be able to help you. You have to figure out ways to continue to sell yourself.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that because I do the same thing. I mean, I guess I'm just like an overachiever when it comes to coaching with my kids, because I just like to make sure that, because sometimes they do need that, let me hold your hand and let me walk you through this, or you might have to walk through that parent through certain things, because Some high schools, depending on where you are, like you said, in the county or if you're in the city, some city schools, you got counselors that don't know anything about the clearinghouse. I've seen it happen. I said, go to the counselor and tell them that you want to enter the clearinghouse. And they come back, coach, she said, what is the clearinghouse? Clean what house? I don't know what you're talking about. And here I am like, okay, so now this is the time when I have to come with my laptop and sit down with them and say, this is what you're looking for. And this is how you got to go about it. But I mean, once you do that, now you're looking at the parent who still doesn't understand what's happening. So now I'm wound up giving a whole class to a parent and an athlete, but that's because I really truly want them to go to college, regardless of the fact. I said, but now piggyback on what you were saying, says out here in the county, they made it mandatory that every school has has FAT timing. We don't have any more hand times. There's no more hand times. Every single school in Montgomery County has an automatic timing system because that's what they wanted. They wanted it like that so that they don't have to worry about the old person standing there shaking their hand trying to give your kid a 10-2 and he ran a 12-3. It's just changing so much. And I think that all of you coaches out here now, I commend you because we're like a link to a lot of information. And sometimes you have some coaches that want to hide the information. Like they just want to look out for that star athlete, where I look at every single athlete that comes in the picture. I don't care from the slowest to the fastest. If you're trying to go to college, I'm quite sure I can find you someplace to go. Okay. Whether or not you're going to get the money that you think you're going to get is another story. But I'm quite sure I could get you in the scholarship with some money, if not what you want, but you'll get something. And you also got to take in consideration what I don't hear a lot of coaches, a lot of you touch on, is that every kid don't want to travel. Some parents don't want their kid to travel because they know that their kid technically is not really, like you said earlier, Coach Ross, they're not mentally ready to be away from home and try to play this sport. It's things that when they say college visits have changed drastically because of COVID now. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go over here and check this school out. No, you're not. No, you're not. You may walk around campus and you may see one or two people, but that's about it. You're not going to get the full gist of why you're trying to go to that school, except for what you see. And so I just figured I'd throw that out there also. I have another question, unless, matter of fact, this is what I wanted to do. It's kind of like a round robin. I wanted to find out from each coach, what topics do you think that a parent is missing that we may have covered or we may not have covered in this conversation? Because academics, it could be academics, it could be sports, it could be what coaches are looking for. It could be anything that you feel as though that is important, maybe for your programs, whether it's high school or colleges or clubs, or it doesn't matter. I just want to know what you think, and we'll just start.
Well, I know that, again, I'm being redundant with this, but again, I think this is so comprehensive of a guide. Now there's no excuse. Like there are going to be guidance counselors that just don't know. Like they're put in a position because whatever the case may be. They're going to be coaches that just don't know. It's not because they're bad people. They just don't know. And to be quite honest and to be quite fair, a lot of the rules and things have changed. And they're changing daily and monthly, whatever the case may be, they're changing. So it's hard to it's hard for me to keep up with them as a college coach that goes through it every day. So again, for parents, there's no excuse for your child to not know, for you to not know when. You can go on to ncaa.org, hit student athletes, hit guide for college bound student athletes. You can find out for yourself all the things, because watch, is too important to leave it up to someone else that may not know. It's too important. So we have to take ownership ourselves. Should it be that way? No. The coach should know, the guidance counselor should know. They all should know. But at the end of the day, it is your child that is or isn't, shoot, that counselor, that coach, they already got theirs. That student athlete is trying to get theirs. Your child is trying to get theirs. So you have to make sure you're informed just in case there's a crack in the armor, a chink in the armor. Be ready to fill it yourself and don't wait for a guidance counselor, a high school coach, or a whatever. So again, ncaa.org, that will help you fill in all the gaps into anything that we've missed right here as a panel, or into anything that your child may be missing in terms of what they need to get to the next level from a guidance counselor or a coach, an AAU coach, a high school coach, or the like.
Okay, Cory?
All right. So one thing we didn't touch on that I'd like to touch on quickly, just about the recruiting process in terms of camps and things like that. So in football, they have these things called mega camps. What a mega camp is, it's a camp that's held at one university, but there are about 40 plus schools that are invited to attend that camp. You can knock out a lot of schools by attending these mega camps. So I recommend in one summer, try to go to 2 of those. All right. Then you have your regular one-day camps at a university. Be sure to go to the schools that are that are very interested in you, and you're trying to earn an offer from them. So I'd say try to go to about 3 of those, but don't overdo it with the camps in the summer. Don't overdo it. Try to get to as many mega camps as you can. Like I said, 2, and that'll help you get some exposure. You'll meet coaches that way. Next, junior days. If you've got an offer, if you got a scholarship, you better be attending that school's junior day. Get to know the campus, get to know the coaches, get to know the atmosphere, get to know everything. Official visits. Understand that you can only take 5 official visits, and you cannot repeat schools. So you get 5 and that's it. So make sure those 5 visits are schools you've already attended the junior days, you've got good relationships with the coaches, and you can see yourself going to those schools. Next, game day visits, unofficial visits. You can take as many of those as you want. So this is an opportunity for you to see campus, to kind of check out the game day atmosphere, kind of get an academic spiel, all that stuff within the football program, or athletic program, I should say. And then lastly, summer visits. So anytime you visit campus now at the Division I level, coaches can work you out in football. So make sure you're in shape and make sure you're prepared for that. So that's one thing that's new. It just came up this year, but coaches are able to work you out now individually.
Okay. But Lamont, Jason, how you got?
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna just piggyback on both coaches. Something that they said earlier. Coach Colger, when he talked about just life after, like when you graduate. So just make sure that you're asking about those things that in your major, and I think you mentioned internships and Coach Rossman talked about graduation rates. So just making sure that yes, you're going there for that sport. Everybody's not gonna make it to the NFL or the NBA or the Olympic trials, whatever it is, but figuring out how you're going to be set up for when you graduate, right? And those connections they have. I thought that was a good point that was worth reiterating. And then also what Coach Ross is right now, just the world that we're living in, your mental health, right? Just understanding that you're going to need someone, or if there are those facilities available, to be able to talk to somebody, right? And so I think those 2 points that both of those coaches brought up were worth repeating, just to make sure that we can drive that home, that what's going to happen when you're done, when you get that degree, and then also your mental health and well-being while you're there, because it's a daily grind, regardless of the sport at that level, regardless of Division I, II, or III. That daily grind can do a lot of great things for you in terms of just preparing you for when you graduate and all the things on the other side. But it can also, you get so used to it that without it, kind of what do you have, right? And so just making sure that they understand that mental aspect as well.
All right. For the Mr. Ranger there.
Yeah, I think parents should try to educate themselves and ask the high school coaches, club coaches, whoever they have affiliated with a student athlete, different questions about college recruit, stuff like that. I mean, as a coach, Ross said earlier, you have the website, the NCAA, you know, we all have internet now and we have our phones. We can't even go online on our phones and get educated, check it out, see what's the requirements and all that stuff. But it's not, as you said, not everyone have a knowledge or idea of the start process. But parents ask a lot of questions. You know, questions are made asked, so no question is foolish or stupid when you try to educate yourself to help your student athlete get the best situation for them going to the next level.
Okay, and I'll go back and say all this because it's funny. In the beginning of the whole piece, we spoke. Coach Calder spoke about dual sport athletes. Coach Ross spoke about dual sport athletes. We all spoke about dual sport athletes. Coach Calder was just talking about somewhere going to wherever. I got a question for you, Coach Calder. If you have an athlete that is going to, let's say, he's playing 7-on-7. He's playing on the 7-on-7 league, but he's only staying in one region. Is that a good region? Is that a good idea for him to do that? And then with him staying in that one region, he just so happens to be running for an AAU team, and he's getting ready to graduate. He doesn't have an offer yet. However, he's ranked in the top 10 in track and field, and his numbers as far as football and him going on 7-on-7, he may be in the top 200. As a parent, what would you tell that athlete, or rather, what would you tell that parent who has that athlete what he needs to focus more on at this moment? Because we found now parents are spending boatloads of money to send their children all these things, and it's still not a guarantee. They think that's a guarantee, and like Mr. Ranger said, he tries to keep it 100, and I try to keep it 100. If you're 5'2", and I don't care what you're saying, and you're playing football, and you said it yourself as a freshman, you're 5'2", and you may weigh 180 pounds, and you're the starting running back of your high school, and you're the man. But when you go away to whatever college you go to, they're playing with somebody 23, 24 years old. Because trust me, I found that out when I left and graduated too, and went to Grambling and said, oh, these guys are big. Okay. So what would you suggest to that?
All right. So I would recommend playing as many sports as you can as you're coming up. Then obviously once that junior year hits, okay, where's the money at? Is my money in football? Is my money in basketball? Okay. Now, passion to play the sport does come into factor as well, because you may be better at football, but if you're more passionate at basketball, you're more apt to probably play all 4 years. Whereas, okay, I'm good at football, I don't love it, because in order to play Division I football, that's a huge commitment. To be a college athlete in general, that's a huge commitment. So if you're not in love, with the sport, go with what you're passionate about. But definitely, first and foremost, if you can, go where the money's at, and hopefully the passion follows.
Secure the bag.
Yeah. 7-on-7, I know you mentioned 7-on-7. College coaches don't even look at that.
They won't?
We don't even pay attention to it. Unless you're a quarterback. Even quarterbacks, we don't pay attention to it, because who's coming after you? You don't have a DN coming after you. You're not, as a receiver, you're not getting hit at the point of contact when you catch the ball. So we're not even looking at 7-on-7, to be honest with you. Like, we might see an athletic catch or something like that and be like, all right, he's a good athlete, but we don't really take it into too much consideration.
Okay. How about you there, Ross? You got anything to say about those I'm going to talk to you about basketball because, once again, what we're finding out now in all sports and straight across the board, a lot of sports is taken away from the dual athlete, meaning that I don't care if you play basketball or you play football, there's always an off season. There's always a time that you are trying to get your body together, prepare and mentally prepare for the next season coming. Now, it's like I'm gonna throw this question to you. Say, for instance, you got a basketball player who happens to be a great high jumper or runs cross country. Now, during the off season, you may say, well, we lift weights and we do this and do this, preparing for the season, but that's during track and field season and cross country season. What are you going to try to explain to that athlete that he needs to do?
Well, I think it's a little different when at the college level, just because who's paying the bills? Like Coach Kohler said, like who's giving you money? I don't know what the money situation would be if you wanted to, while we're having our off-season programs, whether it be weightlifting, conditioning, skill development, whatever the case may be, and you can't attend because you have to go do a track meet, that would have to be a serious conversation, just because, like we started off with this thing, this is an investment that we're making in you. And we expect, as we all do in real life, we want returns on our investment. And if you go out there and you're high jumping and you pull a hamstring, now you can't perform to do what we need you to do and we're paying you the money. Well, there's an issue there. But on the other hand, in high school, let's take, for instance, Simon Gratz. When Bill Ellaby was at Simon Gratz, all of his basketball players had to do something else in the opposite season. They all played basketball, but most of them ran cross country. So you find that they were in extremely great shape when it came time to basketball. They didn't play cross country, they played soccer. So they were doing something else, and it just prepares you for the sport, whatever your main sport is. All those things are great preparation for it. So when you get to college, you may have to specialize, but when you're in high school and you're coming up, I don't think there's anything wrong. I encourage you to, and that's the other thing, like, I know this happens more for females than it does for males. And I can only just speak in terms of my daughter and some of her friends, and that there's a thing called burnout too. Like, when you're every single day doing the same thing, because we do it so much nowadays. Like when we were growing up, we didn't do it as much, as we didn't have a trainer. We didn't have a trainer. We didn't have a trainer for that trainer and that trainer and that trainer. Everybody has a trainer nowadays. So it's this burnout thing that goes on too. So that's the other reason while you're coming up and before you've actually made that determination as to this is what's going to make me my money, or this is what's going to make me team no tuition, play a whole bunch of sports. Find out what is your passion and what is it that's going to lead you to be the most successful.
Do you try to direct some of your athletes with the same thing, as far as go with passion and things like that, firsthand, before you go with your gut feeling of saying, oh, I think I want to be the greatest soccer player on the planet, but you know what? I happen to run a pretty good mile. I run a 4:13 mile. I think a college will come and get me, but I really like soccer better. What would you say?
Oh, that's for me?
Yes, that's to you.
I mean, think about the time. You're a soccer player. Is your high school soccer team make playoffs? Do you guys ever make the playoffs? That's the question to ask yourself. That's the stat you guys have. When last time you guys won a championship? But if you were a soccer player running 4:14 in a mile, that's no brainer. A lot of B colleges knocking on your door like, this young man running a 14. You don't have a lot of high school seniors running this time. So I'm gonna give him a look, give him a scholarship. So I mean, the time alone speaks for itself. But just wait time playing so with your program that's not really good. Y'all barely make playoffs or never really maybe won 5 games out of 20. I mean, that's no absolute. I'd encourage that league to stick with the one that's working pretty well. Because I have a league that do baseball, basketball, and track. And track is just so natural, that athlete. Right now, he is in middle school. But I told his mom when they get to high school, she and him sit down and make choice. Because you can't, as I said earlier, you can burn these things out. So you got to figure out what is it that really good for them or they're passionate about, and then make a decision on that. So I encourage to do a bunch of sports in school, but as far as that soccer question, that's a no-brainer, coach. With a 4:14, 4:13, comparing to soccer program at school,
Okay.
I figure you know the answer for that.
All right. Well, I have one more question that, matter of fact, this will probably be the last question, and then I'm going to have to ask my poll mark to come in and close this out, because we will have another Zoom continuing at 8 o'clock after this, and I need to give Brother Lewimbe at least a 30-minute break. Okay. But however, this last question is this. We have for basketball, there's AAU basketball, there's AAU track, there's AAU football too, because I saw that go on. Now, what happens if, would any of you coaches grab an athlete strictly from AAU to come to your university and or attend, college, because they don't run at school. They only run AAU. They don't play basketball for the school. They only play AAU. They don't play football except for AAU football, summer football, whatever the case may be. They don't play in high school. They only do AAU. What would you do? Coach Lamont.
Well, I mean, I'm back at the high school level, but if I was at the collegiate level still, I mean, I'm just looking at the results, right? I would want to find out, what stopped them from competing at the, with their high school program. Sometimes they may not have one, or, there could have been something that went on with the coaching staff, that type of stuff. So, I would dig a little bit as to figure out, why am I seeing all these times just in the summer, or just with AAU or USATF and not with their high school program? I would want to know, but then obviously the situations, their homeschool, different things. So, you definitely want to do your due diligence in figuring out what stopped them from, competing with their high school team or in a high school program, and do a little digging. But when it comes down to it, if those marks are there, the grades are there, I'm always going to take a chance, especially if I can put my eyes on them and see them perform.
Okay. Coach Cory?
Sorry about that. So in football, in this instance, you better cross off every box. So just in terms of, okay, character. All right, are you a good person? Body language, all those things. Because typically, if a kid's not playing for their high school football team, there's usually a coach issue. There's some sort of disconnect. So I'm going to do my homework to find out, because like we were talking about earlier, this is an investment on us too. So we're putting our name on the line for a kid. So with that, I'm going to do my homework and make sure this kid's a good fit. And you got to be a dude. You got to be an absolute dude in football for that to happen.
Okay.
No, that's a that would definitely have to be a conversation as to why aren't you playing for your high school team? Like the coaches just said, there could be valid reasons. There could be very valid reasons as to why, but it has to be a conversation. We have to talk about it as to why you don't, because there have been many times that we recruit a young man, we can't really get a good feel for them skill-wise from high school, because a lot of times you go to a high school game, that student athlete is the only Division I player on the court. So him going up against whomever, where he can just do whatever he wants to do, a lot of times that may not be a true barometer as to how they'll be when they get to college. Now, on the AAU circuit, most times he's playing for a good AAU team, so there are other Division I players on his team with him. And the tournaments that we go to, they're playing against the same amount of Division I players. So it's sometimes it's a better barometer as to how they'll be in college. So I'm never one that wants to take the high school coach or the high school careers out of the mix, but there are some times where, and we've all seen it, where the high school coach is just a science teacher that got the job because no one else in the building wanted the job. So he's really just out there just rolling them out and saying, look, I'm gonna do what y'all say. You know, in those situations, it might not be the best way to evaluate if we want to give this person $120,000. So sometimes you have to go another route, but we like to use them both, obviously, and there are some nuggets that you can pull from each thing. But if he's not playing for his high school team, that is a conversation that we have to have to exactly find out why.
Outstanding. Mr. Ranger, you got anything to add to that, since you are a club coach? And
I think it's wise for you to be a part of the actual athletic program. So you're coaching, I just see character-wise building, stuff like that. So I think it would be best to do that, whether it come on track and field. AAU, I mean, a lot of people do both, high school and AAU. If you just do straight AAU, it could be some flag. Why not in that school? Why you performing for your school or be a part of the school team and stuff like that? So I really encourage you to be a part of the program.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, I would like to thank you all for participating in this forum. I believe that you gave us a lot of in-depth information. I would like you, if possible, to at least shoot us your emails and things like that, just in case there are some people on our page that may want to ask you questions directly, or, you know, even if it's athletes on here, they may want to talk to you because it might be something they wanted to ask that they just did not ask during this particular forum. So if you could send that to our webpage, or even to myself, which is clarence.lewis45@yahoo. Please feel free to do so. And yes, they're coming up. Yep, type it in there and we'll get it right automatically. And I'm going to let my illustrious Paul Mark give out a closing speech, but I want to say thank you very much for participating in our panel during our Kappa Week.
Good evening, gentlemen. I would just like to say thank you very much for all that you do in your respective jobs and careers. You are an integral part of many of our young men's lives. Being as coaches and mentors for them, you might be one of the few men in their lives as positive role models. So I want to say thank you for that first and foremost. Secondly, thank you for this very informative forum. I was never in a position to be a college athlete or a college recruited athlete, but it's very interesting to learn about the ins and outs and hear it from your perspectives. And I think a lot of people who are on as participants learned a lot. If you could, please make sure that you get your information to Brother Lewis, put it in the chat, because I'm quite sure people want to reach out to you to make further contact. Thank you, Brother Lewis. This was an outstanding forum, very great idea, much needed. Thank you again to Brother Domingos to make sure all the technical things went on. Like I said, he has a master class in all things technical, and we could not have put this on without him. Please go to our website, phillycappas.org, and look out for our rest of our Kappa week. We have 4 more activities, believe it or not. Tonight, Kappa Comedy Show going on at 8 o'clock. Will be a good time. Matching up with somewhat what you guys do, we have a workout first thing in the morning tomorrow, followed by a smoke out with the Newts, where we're learning how to barbecue, and we're going to cap off our week with Battle of the DJs. It's a telethon for sickle cell anemia, where we will have DJ Diamond Cuts versus DJ Touchtone, and I'm quite sure it'll be a great party. And hey, it's going to be bad weather here in the Philadelphia surrounding area. You're going to be in the house anyway, so check out and party with the Noops and the Deltas and have a good time. Thanks again, and hope to see you at our other events for the rest of Kappa Week.
Thank you, Brother Paul Martin. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. And wrap it up. And you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
That's right. Have a wonderful weekend on purpose.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.